What's going on, guys? I'm Tim Kelly. This is Phillies Stoplight for May 26th. The Phillies will be off today before returning home for a homestand that will see the Braves and the Brewers come to town. Two interesting series. They finished 6 out of 7 wins on the road trip, so it's hard to be too negative about that. They did lose yesterday, and there are some concerns I want to get to in a minute. But I want to point out some positive parts because the Phillies have the best record in the National League right now. They just won 6 out of 7 on a road trip, and I get that it was two of the poorer teams in the league, specifically in the case of the Rockies, who look like they have a chance to set the record for least wins in a season, most losses in a season, however you want to phrase it. But still, they took 6 out of 7. That's pretty impressive, and they weren't that far away from potentially going 7 out of 7. So I do want to look at some of the positives before I get into some of the concerns first. It was another monster weekend for Kyle Schwarber, who now has 18 home runs, amazing base running Saturday night between realizing he should take third base because it was obstructed going from first to second base, and then tagging up and beating the throw to home plate. Again, I could do every show on Kyle Schwarber because he's given that much material to work with. He has unquestionably been the best player on this team this season. Zach Wheeler Friday night was tremendous. 6 2/3 shutout innings, 8 Ks. I believe it's now 3 consecutive outings that he has not allowed an earned run. So you start to take it for granted with Zach Wheeler, but all I would say is don't, because this is not normal what he's doing. He's pitching his way certainly towards another All-Star game appearance and potentially into the Hall of Fame discussion. So a great performance from Zach Wheeler and a win Friday night. Trey Turner had a go-ahead home run Sunday. Again, the bullpen didn't hold it after he hit that go-ahead home run, but a tremendous offensive weekend for him. He's hitting .310 now, so Saturday he struggled in the field. Not going to overlook that, but at the same time, his best attribute is what he can do offensively, and he has done that at a very high level this year. He's another guy that's in the mix for the All-Star game. And then Jesus Luzardo might be the most obvious All-Star for the Phillies this season. He leads all NL pitchers in WAR, gave up 3 runs in the first inning yesterday, settled in, ends up pitching 7 innings against the team he began his career with. So Jesus Luzardo has been an absolute heist to this point by Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies. I do worry a little bit with his usage. He's already eclipsed the amount of innings he pitched all of last season. I was a bit surprised they brought him back out for the 7th inning yesterday, although his pitch count was manageable. I do wonder if there's a pullback game or two coming for him, because he's going to blow by the amount of innings he pitched last year, and you do want to be careful with the guy who's had some injuries, and you want to make sure he's healthy in October. You don't want to have a situation like what you had with Ranger Suarez a year ago, where the guy pitches so well early in the season that you will give him a long leash and then he runs out of gas. So something to consider with him, but overall, he's been as good. Tarek Skubal threw a complete game shutout for the Tigers yesterday. He's the best pitcher in baseball in my mind. Hunter Brown's been great for the Astros. But as far as the NL goes, I think Jesus Luzardo, Zach Wheeler, Yamamoto, there's a few guys, but the Phillies have 2 of the 3 that have been the very best. 2 of the 4 or 5, I should say, that have been the very best this season in Wheeler and Luzardo. Now, as positive as this week has been, even with a loss yesterday, there is a reality here that the Phillies won some games, particularly those first 2 in Oakland, that I don't know against a good team if you win those. The A's have a lot of intriguing talent in their lineup, but their bullpen, even with Mason Miller at the back end, is a disaster. Their starting pitching is not very good either. So you were able to win some games that I don't know that you're going to win, like this week against the Braves, if you have that same strategy. And you have 3 guys that you trust in the bullpen right now: Jordan Romano, Matt Strahm, Orion Kerkering. And even those 3, there have been some blips in the radar. Romano obviously had a really bad start, was electric for 3 weeks, and then Friday really struggled. He looked like he had been overused. Didn't use him Saturday, Sunday. They'll have off Monday, so he should be good to go Tuesday for the Atlanta series. But that's something worth monitoring. This is a guy that had an elbow injury last season, so you don't want to run him into the ground, because without Jose Alvarado, he's become that much more important. So is Matt Strahm, who's now your top lefty. He struggled yesterday, was not able to hold the lead. It was a blown save. He wasn't in the save situation, but blew the save. He wasn't in the ninth inning to close the game out, I should say, but it was a blown save because he comes in the bottom of the eighth with the lead and gives it up. And the velocity was a little bit down too as well. And Matt Strom had the shoulder thing in spring training, so I think you want to be careful with how much you use him. Orion Kerkering has been much better of late, had a huge performance Saturday night to help the Phillies stay alive in that game, but he obviously had some struggles earlier in the season as well. So you don't want to run those three into the ground, and you would acknowledge that while you like a lot of what you've gotten from those three, none of them have been automatic necessarily either. So it's clear to me you need upgrades. You need multiple upgrades. I don't think this is a situation you're going to solve by just trading for one guy at the trade deadline. And there's a reality that there's a ways till the trade deadline. Trade rumor season starts in early June, and we're about to be at that. Actual trades, though, you're talking closer to the All-Star break. Occasionally you'll get a trade earlier. Luis Ariz was traded last year. 2 years ago, Aroldis Chapman was traded in June, I believe. So it's not unheard of, but in general, most trades are going to happen around July 31st. So not only do you have to think about what your bullpen's going to look like in October, you need to think about what your bullpen's going to look like in June and July before that, so you put yourself in the best position for October. And I think you have a lot of guys outside of that trio right now that are fringe guys. Maybe they'd be the seventh or eighth guy in a lot of bullpens. Maybe they'd be at AAA on some teams. None of them do you necessarily feel comfortable with. Rob Thompson likes Jose Ruiz a lot. Hasn't been a very good season for him so far. Carlos Hernandez, when he's in the zone, is electric. He's got closer potential, but he throws way too many balls to feel comfortable bringing him on in most high leverage situations. So you have a bunch of these guys where maybe one or two of them could be in your bullpen, and you have like five of them in your bullpen right now. You're going to need to figure out something else. And the one name that's been talked about that you could figure out sooner rather than later potentially is David Robertson, who's still a free agent. He had a great season last year with Texas as a setup man to Kirby Yates. It's a little surprising, even though he did turn 40, that he's a free agent. At least it was until Bob Nightingale reported over the weekend that David Robertson, who does represent himself, was seeking $15 million, which makes the report from Mark Feinsand of MLB.com last week that the Phillies checked in with Robertson before Alvarado, before his suspension became public, but serious talks didn't take place, something to that effect. Well, if David Robertson is still looking for something like what he's looking in the offseason, I don't think serious talks are going to take place with any team. He's going to have to, he represents himself, and he's going to have to get a little more realistic if he plans to pitch this season. I think he's a really solid option still, but most teams are going to bring him in, envisioning him pitching as their setup man, not as their closer. So they wouldn't have given him, they obviously didn't give him $15 million in the offseason, certainly not now, because the reality is now you're looking at prorated because it's already, let's say, June. By the time he's ready to pitch, it's probably almost July. He's not getting that. And he may be fine. He's pitched 16 seasons. He's 40 years old. He's been an all-star, won a World Series. He may be content to not pitch again. I remember a few years ago when he was back with the Phillies in 2022, his son was with him everywhere he went all the time. It's cool to see. I always think that's cool when players have their kids around. But it does make you wonder, like, is a guy that's pitched this much, made a lot of money, is he content if he doesn't get the perfect offer to be done? Maybe he is. If he wants to pitch, he's going to have to get a little more realistic, and whether that's with the Phillies or anyone, he's going to have to bring that number down. And I don't know if that's going to happen or when it will happen. I do think the idea of him coming in mid-season might actually work better than had you sign him at the beginning of the season. He's 40 years old. Ran out of gas with the Phillies kind of in 2022. Certainly did in 2023 after he got traded to the Marlins. Last year, the Rangers didn't play in the playoffs. He had a really good season last year. Still pitched almost 70 games. So I think he's a solid option. He cannot be your big move, but to me, the Phillies need to make multiple moves. And if you can get him at a price that you think is appropriate, bringing him in now and then making another big addition to the bullpen around July 31st, then you're in business, especially with the possibility that eventually one of your starters, whether it's Ranger Suarez, Mick Abel, whoever the case is, shifts into like a high leverage relief role. I think you're in business at that point. but it doesn't seem like David Robertson's ready to sign. So as perfect as this may seem for the Phillies, I don't know that it actually comes to fruition. Now, trade-wise, again, you're a ways away. The Orioles, for example, are not punting on the season today. Felix Bautista is the guy everyone's talking about there. He's controlled through 2026. 2 seasons ago, won the Mariano Rivera Award as the best reliever in the American League. He's an intriguing option, but he also missed all of last season with Tommy John. I don't believe he's gone back-to-back this season, so that's a little concerning when you're talking about a guy you want to be able to pitch a bunch of days in the postseason or even in September, having to manage his workload. I don't know that this is the year to give up a ton for a guy like that. We saw Mason Miller was kind of all over the place over the weekend. Pitched well Sunday, but Friday and Saturday did not. A guy that consistently is throwing 102 or 103, the idea of giving up a ton of prospects for him, which that's what it would take. He's controlled through 2029, doesn't even become arbitration eligible. I forget if it's 26 or 27, but he's not even at arbitration yet, so he's super cheap. To get a guy like that, you're going to have to give up a ton, and I just don't trust that his elbow or his shoulder isn't going to blow out. You've seen it with Ben Joyce with the Angels. He's out for the season now. He throws even harder than Mason Miller. I guess the amazing thing about Aroldis Chapman is he's managed to stay so healthy in his career despite throwing that, but he's the anomaly. And I don't know if no pun intended, I don't know if the A's are going to want to trade Mason Miller. They're trying to get a new stadium. He's one of their faces of the team. And B, if they do, it's going to be for a king's ransom. And I just don't know that is the type of profile, as electric as he is, that I would give up a bounty for. Ryan Helsley is more interesting to me because he's a rental. So I still think it would take more than what you would want to give up for a guy you're only guaranteed to have a couple months with, but it wouldn't take the type of price to get Mason Miller. You're not locked into him long term. You're not locked into him beyond this season. The problem is the Cardinals are contending right now, so they're not going to trade him if things keep going this way. I think they're playing above their talent level, and they may dip as the season goes along. And for a team that came into the year saying they were not punting, but they were looking more to 2026 and 2025, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up selling, but they didn't really even listen to offers for him in the offseason. He was the Trevor Hoffman Award winner last year as the best NL reliever. So I wonder if they maybe want to try and re-sign him after this year. As much as I think you should sell on a closer that throws 100 and his elbow could go at any time, he may be someone they want to keep around. Dennis Santana of the Pirates is a name that I think you're going to start to hear a lot about. He, since being acquired from the Yankees last season, has a 2.19 ERA in 61 games. You would have him for next season as well. He's under team control. Pirates are going to get a lot for him, but you would get a year of control. It's a guy that can come in and be your closer, but I don't think he's not the type of name where if you acquire him, like if Mason Miller came in, or Felix Bautista, or even Ryan Helsley, you're kind of looking at them as the savior. For Dennis Santana, I think you're looking at him as the biggest part of the solution, but it's a solution that includes multiple options. And I think that might be the most realistic path. His teammate David Bednar is an interesting name. He's a 2-time All-Star, pitched in the World Baseball Classic, under team control for another year after this season. But since the start of 2024, he's got a 5.72 ERA. So I don't know. I mean, that's like an interesting guy to take a flyer on if you're a team that's sort of in contention but thinks maybe next year is more your window. That's not the Phillies. So relief to me is the clear area of need, but this is 100% a seller's market because you've seen it the last couple weeks. You look at some of these teams like the Pirates and the Rockies. You can list the White Sox. Like some of the teams that are obvious sellers don't have players worth selling because the ownership groups aren't trying in those cities, and they're going to lose 110 games for a reason. So, I mean, the Rockies might lose 130 the way they're going. So, as much as you want to be a buyer and you want to be a buyer today, I don't know if there's an obvious answer today, but those are some of the names that are worth keeping in mind. Phillies are off today. The Braves are coming into town, though, for what should be a fun series. According to Matt Gelb, they've rearranged the rotation a bit. Ranger Suarez will go Tuesday. That allows Zach Wheeler to go Wednesday on normal rest. Christopher Sanchez goes Thursday. Taijuan Walker, who would have been up in the rotation, is going to go Friday against the Brewers. And I just think having 3 of your 4 best pitchers go against the Braves makes sense. The Braves are 8.5 back of the Phillies, but they played much better after starting 0-7. But the Phillies are 34-19. If you win 2 out of 3, or even if you're able to sweep this series, you put yourself in a pretty commanding position. Now, the Braves are a team that has shown under Brian Snitker, like when the calendar hits like late July or August, they just know how to win games. They know how to erase division deficits. So nothing you do in this series is going to clinch the NL East. But what you can do is put yourself in as good a position as possible, because you know at some point the Braves are going to get scorching hot. They got Ronald Acuna back over the weekend. He homered in each of his first 2 games, including his first at-bat. Spencer Strider should pitch in this series against the Phillies. Jurickson Profar won't be eligible to pitch in the playoffs, but because he got suspended first week of the season, you'll have him back for almost half the season. So the Braves project to be a much better team in August and September than they are even right now, certainly than what they were in April. So I think you want to continue to put your foot on their necks if you're able to do that, and the Phillies will have a chance to do that after an off day on Monday. That's going to do it for today's episode of Phillies Stoplight. Check out everything on Patterson. I'm Tim Kelly. I'll talk to you guys next time.